Hi all. On Monday the 2nd, I had an interesting and very quick game in the C3 Sicilian. I usually play the French defence, but on the way to the game I was discussing opening theory and how, I used to play the Sicilian Svechnikov a lot, and my good friend Alex was saying, that the avoidance lines, in a way, the opponent is kind of chickening out of the main lines, and so this evening, when e4 was played against me, against my opponent Norman Hutchinsn, who had also, I just played him in the Barnet Congress over the weekend. So this was like the second time in the space of 3 days facing my opponent. I decided to actually play the Sicilian defence and not the French defence. And, whatever deviation, I'll just accept it. So he actually did play c3, which has become, very, very popular over the last few years as a way of avoiding mainline Sicilian theory. But the theory of the c3 itself is now quite huge. I chose actually knight f6, and at least this creates some dynamic differences in the position. So white now plays e5, so white's potentially got this pawn chain to undermine later. So there's something unbalanced about the position. So I don't mind this variation. After d4 I took on d4 and he took on d4, and now I played e6. I'm not totally familiar with the theory of this. I know that Agard had a win against David Howe in one of the British Championships, I think a couple of years back. My opponent played knight f3 and I just played knight c6, and now he played a slightly unusual move, knight c3. What I did think here is if I take on c3, so look at this, he takes, and I play d5. Well, it gives him a nice pawn chain, and also, when he plays bishop d3, look at his bishops, they will be quite good, wouldn't they, on d3 and c1, and also like pointing against my king. And look at this bishop, it will take quite a long time to get it out of the chain or try and exchange it off, am I going to play for bishop a6 later? So I didn't really fancy this that much. What I did instead was actually play d6. So temporarily I'm allowing myself to have double pawns, but I'm thinking if ed, then this bishop at least will have some opportunities to come out later, like to f5 or to g4. So he actually played bishop g5 here, and although potentially he's weakening my dark squares with a bishop exchange, I thought, well, his dark squares will be potentially weaker, like f4. If knight f4 becomes a possibility later, if he left that knight on d5. So I actually did just offer the exchange of bishops with bishop e7, and he took, and I took with the queen, and now he played a very controversial move. He didn't need to. I think white's is slightly better here according to Rivka. Just bishop b5, and that would be fine. So say castles, and I haven't really got much to look forward to here. It's not an exciting Sicilian defence position by any stretch of the imagination. So what would I do here? Well, maybe Ripka gives takes and then take on e5, and and white hasn't got that much of an advantage. So although it isn't exciting, it's also not going to be that bad for black. But he actually played a controversial move. He played knight e4, and here I just took on e5 to be able to play this queen b4 check, which is very annoying in this particular position. So what is he doing about his knight? And also I'm threatening like queen takes b2s as well if knight c3. Well, actually, if knight c3, just take. I'll just take and check. Embarrassing, because queen e2, queen takes a1. So he actually made this into a gambit now with knight fd2 to defend that knight, and I took the e pawn. I was thinking, do I take the b pawn or the e pawn? And I reasoned actually, if I took the b pawn, I thought the main thing about this is, say knight c4, I thought he'd have a bind on d6 as well as protecting his e5. So say queen b4, queen d2. I didn't particularly like this, although Rivka seems to like it, because I thought, I'm still stuck with this potentially bad bishop, and white has domination of d6, so it's not that great. So I thought taking on e5 was better as a way of winning the pawn here with the knight. So knight takes e5. He played now queen h5, and I started to get a little bit concerned now because there's some tactics going on with this knight on e4, which he exploits now. I move the knight to g6, and he plays now bishop b5 check. So he's stopping me from castling. Do I want to play king f8 or king e7? So another key decision here. Well, the advantage of king e7, as what I played, at least it more rapidly has the potential to connect the rooks. It doesn't block in this rook from coming to d8 later. So I could potentially manually castle. So I like the look of king e7 as well, because it guards d6. If I take the bishop, then knight d6. So I can't take the bishop. So king there or there, I chose king e7. And he played now bishop c4. And here, I was looking at some variations. I thought it would be quite amusing if he missed a particular check, which he did. So queen takes b2. He actually offers a double rook sacrifice, which, although brilliant, has a slight implementation issue. So bishop takes d5, offering the sacrifice of both rooks. I do take the first rook, but after king e2, can you spot another move here? I'll give you 5 seconds. Although actually, it has to be said that taking this rook is also pretty good. It's probably actually the best move. So what is the second best move which I played? I'll give you 5 seconds starting from now. Okay, I just played knight f4 check, and on this he resigns. He's going to be actually a rook down. So say king e3. I take his queen, he takes my queen, he takes, I'm actually a rook up, and also 2 pawns. So it was a pretty quick win, one of my quickest of the season. I think maybe my opponent was a bit tired from playing the tournament over the weekend. And he, to be fair, he has duffed me up in our second from last encounter, where I had a disaster in the opening. And so he's a dangerous player, but just on the night, it wasn't his best game. Okay, I hope there's something instructive in that game, and please leave any comments on YouTube. Thanks very much.